Hey everybody, welcome back. Hope you have had a great week of low friction cycling. Welcome to the first ever edition of the Zero Friction Cycling Shonky Awards. Being the first one, I'm not going to limit this to just the previous 12 months like a lot of places do with their obviously annual Shonky Awards. We'll go back for this first one and really sort of highlight the most, I'm going to say, dodgy stuff that we've seen from my time playing in this fun little niche area of cycling. I'm just going to be going through them, I guess, more or less what's going to be sort of top of mind. So this is not in order of shonkiness. You might be able to rank them in order of shonkiness in the comments at the end of the video. Alrighty, now I have split the Shonky Awards up into two videos in the end because you may not believe this, but I ran a little long trying to get it all into one vid. And I could have either cut a whole bunch of information out that I didn't want to cut out, or cut some products out, which I also didn't want to cut out because they really deserve to be in the Shonky Awards. So it's going to be a two-parter. Just very quick low friction news before we start, as always. Huge thanks to Escape Collective for covering in their latest Geek Warning podcast. If you're not a subscriber to Escape Collective, really is a great thing to support such a great, sort of media body in the industry. It's the best band back together from what was Cycling Tips. So yeah, thank you to those that at EC that covered the launch of the new cost to run calculator with OmniCalc, and also huge thanks again to Alvaro and OmniCalc for getting this up and going. There have been a few errors in the calculator which I thought might happen. The stuff will get missed in small scale testing that once a whole bunch of people start playing with will come up. So apologies for that, and thank you for those that have fed back anything that didn't seem quite right. I have zoomed those off to OmniCalc, and I think even by the time I record this, they will have sorted out those issues. And so within a pretty short space of time, it should be pretty robust. So yeah, but if you have played with it and got anything odd, zing that to me at info@zerofrictioncycling.com.au, and I'll be able to get them to jump on that pretty quick. Alrighty, let's go see who's been shonky. Right, congratulations to Wend Wax being the first one that we'll cover off today. They were the first to go to market with the marketing angle of you can rub a solid wax lubricant on the outside of your chain and yet magically have lubrication inside your chain. It is a marketing angle that had, I guess no one had been game enough to try before, but it was an angle that was simply too tempting for good folks at Wend Wax. Right, if you have in the past believed the marketing or are continuing to believe the marketing, hopefully by the end of me just going through a couple of things again with Wend, will help get the sort of basic physics circuit and logic circuit in the old noodle going a bit better. And with luck, you won't be sort of taken advantage of with such things in the future. I mean, it is a bit of a tricky one, obviously. I think there is still to a large degree some tacit trust that is placed with companies when they do go to market making big, bold claims, especially when they're spending what must have been a metric fuck ton by Wend Wax on their Instagram and other digital media advertising. They also supplied, who knows how much money's worth of packs to just bike stores of even sort of not even just the largest ones, but pretty much even sort of moderate to small size bike stores and online stores, where they were free to then sell those packs at the full recommended retail price and keep 100% of the profit. So, a really, I would say, clever but very expensive way to buy into market traction, because if people are purchasing the product and you're keeping all the revenue, it's basically a sort of on the surface, a win-win trial for you. And then if it sold well enough and you wanted to keep stocking the product, then you would go forth and reorder more packs from the Wend Wax importer for your country. Whilst I'm on that point, I'd like to say a big well done to the bike store owners that received their Wend Wax packs to sell. had a look at the marketing and or any other information they may have received from the rep, knew immediately that it was an absolute, I guess, con job marketing angle, and threw the packs into the bin, that they were not going to sell those packs to their customers because they had care for what their customers were going to be putting onto their drivetrains, and this product was a step too far. So I applaud, I guess, the level of just customer focus and morals from the store owners that took that action. Okay, let's have a quick look at the Wend Wax website. It has some fun things here. So it is the first ever rub-on wax-based chain lubricant. Again, I will state there's a reason why it is the first ever. So it is no secret that the most efficient chain lubrication method to date is immersing a chain into a vat of molten paraffin. However, this method is time-consuming, temporary, and dangerous. Right, so just to cover a little bit of this fun marketing here. All right, time-consuming. Just have a look at my waxing concise version video, and also what I cover in the wax life like a boss video. I think we can pretty much put to bed that immersive waxing is a big time-consuming task. Temporary, it's a bit of a weird one. Yes, an immersive wax treatment is going to be temporary, so will a Wend Wax treatment. In fact, if you apply a Wend Wax by just rubbing it on, it's so temporary it doesn't even exist to begin with. But even if you do, which we'll cover in a sec, the advanced application technique, which is what you must do if you want any actual penetration, obviously any lubricant treatment that you put onto your chain is temporary. I have no idea why they are, I guess, listing that as a con for immersive waxing that Wend Wax somehow solves. And dangerous. Again, if you are waxing with something as simple as a crock pot or slow cooker, the recommended method, it is as dangerous as boiling your kettle if you are going to try to do immersive waxing like a mad person and do it in your oven or microwave or on top of your barbecue and so on, and you heat your wax to over, I think it's around about 160 degrees Celsius as opposed to the recommended temperature of around 90 degrees Celsius, then you can flash ignite your paraffin base. I mean, wow, I could go through quite a list of pretty normal daily activities that could be construed as dangerous if you are going to do them like an idiot. And lastly, this bit's a bit important. The application is a cinch, as the user simply rubs the wax onto the chain rollers, resulting in a race-ready chain in seconds. Okay, in case you haven't seen any zero friction cycling vids before, you may not have heard me cover the fact that even a number of wax drip lubricants, which are liquid, can present with some significant initial penetration issues. So when you have cleaned your chain and you're applying the wax drip, it may struggle to get through the very small gap between the inner plate link shoulders to get to the pin. And a number of wax strip lubricants have had to go through, I guess, quite some lengths to develop a wax strip lubricant that does not present with penetration issues. The odds on rubbing a solid on the outside of your chain and having that penetrate deep in the chain where you actually need lubrication, again, it just doesn't align with physics. In the testing, so the first test for wax doing the application exactly as per their video and massaging the wax in, you can give it your chain and your wax rub-on application the world's best massage you could possibly imagine. You will not get a happy ending. We can see that the Wend Wax application, the wear rate, it basically wore through the entire chain in just the first 1,000 kilometer block 1, which has no contamination. It was almost the same wear rate as testing a chain just strip clean and applying no lubricant. And it basically sounded and ran almost exactly like a chain with no lubrication. The slight difference between a chain with zero lubricant and the Wend Wax rub-on application, that small difference there would have just been the very small amount of solid wax that I was able to massage underneath the roller, but it was certainly not enough to, or there's no way to get that any further past that level and get it down to the pin where you really need lubrication. So then I wrote to the CEO of Wend, and they advised that, not all chains are created equal. You must need the advanced application technique. And he sent me a link to their newly minted video at the time of applying first the wax rub-on stick, massage it in, and then the advanced application technique is basically then using their special wax-off solvent to dissolve their solid rub-on wax into the chain. All right, so then retesting by dissolving the Wend Wax in with their special wax-off solvent, it did something, some lubrication entered, but it was still, let's just say really, really average. It is sitting down in 27th place out of basically 40 open tests to date. And considering that you are now, I guess, mixing live your own wax strip lubricant, which is between the wax rub-on stick and the wax-off solvent that you dissolve it in with, it's quite an expensive product. You know, there are any number of pre-mixed wax drip lubricants that perform much, much better and are overall much cheaper than faffing about mixing your own wax drip lubricant on your chain to get a really poor result. So I think it's safe to say that the product fails the entire premise as to how it is marketed. You do have to dissolve it in to get any actual penetration. So you do not have a rub-on solid wax that you can rub onto the outside of your chain and have a race-ready chain in seconds. That fails physics, it fails logic, it fails testing. And I'll leave it up to you to ask yourself as to whether or not you think the founders or owners of Wend Wax going to market with this product and that marketing angle were aware or are aware as to whether or not you can rub a solid on the outside of your chain and have lubrication deep inside the chain where you actually need it. If your answer to that question is no, my answer to that question is obviously a very clear no. And whilst I'm still going to state that all of this is my own personal belief and opinion, I think that I form my own personal belief and opinions on some fairly solid, sort of testing and information. And again, basic logic and physics. I would love to see someone strip clean a chain and then demonstrate rubbing the, get one of the colored Wend Wax sticks, rub the colored wax stick on the outside of the chain, massage the bejesus out of it, open up that chain and show me some colored wax on the pin. Someone please take that challenge. Most especially the CEO of Wend. Please take that challenge. So lastly, that leads me to the Wend colored wax. So they brought out the colored wax sticks, and to my great dismay, the market did go pretty nuts for that. And all right, let's go through it. All right, yes, forgive me revisiting this. It's almost physically painful. It just breaks certain circuits in my brain. So to have a Wend Wax color chain first, and this is assuming you actually want lubrication in your chain as well. So first you would apply your colored wax. Then you would need to dissolve that in with the wax off, which is going to make the color run and look like shite. So you're going to need to wipe that dry on the outside, let it dry, then smear a whole bunch more on the outside where you don't need a whole bunch of wax, because let me tell you, this stuff gets really gunky, sets almost kind of like concrete. It's going to look like a sort of nice color for all of about 2 minutes before it starts looking pretty smeary, and things just overall are going to look real weird. It's not a good look, and it pains me that companies can go to market with such stuff and actually get market traction and sales. As I know it is tricky as consumers, because you do want to place trust in companies and you do want to believe what a company is openly telling you about their product. But there are times, I think, where a moment's thought is going to potentially have you not spend money on some of this stuff. And I'd like to see bike stores do better. Why is a bike store selling this shit to a customer? If your bike store is doing so, there's potentially a hard question or two you might want to pose to the bike store. Get them to watch this vid and see if they would like to refute, and they can obviously come to me as well with some refuting evidence on the Wend Wax performance. I would obviously, as in all cases, love to be proven incorrect, and I would come back on and do a big apology and say, hey, I was wrong, Wend Wax is actually amazing, here's the evidence as to why. If anyone would like to provide me with that, please do so. Lastly on Wend, since the initial launch of their rub-on solid wax, they do have some other products in the lineup, such as some drip wax versions. I have no idea if they are amazing, terrible, or something in between. I can be absolutely positive that they will penetrate better into your chain than rubbing a solid on the outside will. And I can't believe it, but they also have the incredibly dangerous hot melt version of their wax. So if you're looking to try that, just make sure you have all the requisite life insurance policies in place, because danger-wise, this is going to be up there with base jumping into an active volcano. If you try it and live to tell the tale, please let me know. But as far as the Shonky Award goes, I think, again, my personal opinion and belief is that it is rather shonky to go to market with a product that is a solid wax that you rub on the outside of your chain, telling people that you will have a race-ready chain in seconds, when in fact, for any actual lubrication to be present inside your chain, you need to dissolve that solid wax in with a solvent. That would be a little bit like me launching a line of self-inflating tires and then go, oh, actually, you need to attach a pump and pump up your self-inflating tires. A little bit shonky. That is Wend Wax. Oh, and sorry, but lastly, the colored wax. Please never make me discuss the rub-on colored wax ever again. It is physically painful that product exists. It's, oh, fuck me. Oh, and sorry, but lastly, the colored wax. Please never make me discuss the rub-on colored wax ever again. It is physically painful that product exists. It's, oh, fuck me. Okay, next up is Muc-Off. If you've been following ZFC for any amount of time, you no doubt would have expected this one to appear on this particular video, and here we go. Right, so again, so that I hopefully minimize the chances of being sued by a very much larger company, all of what I'm going to discuss here is in my personal opinion and belief. However, these opinions and beliefs are not formed from nothing. Okay, in this space in cycling at the moment, we do not have an agreed industry standard for chain lubricant efficiency testing. That does leave things open for potentially somebody to use some lubricant testing in a way that is perhaps a little bit naughty. Right, so on this vid, I need to not go deep with regards to the ins and outs of lubricant efficiency testing, but I do need to cover a quick background on way back in the Friction Facts days. A very smart, very good man by the name of Jason Smith pioneered that something called full tension testing is the most accurate method to attain the efficiency losses in a chain. And if obviously you're using a control chain, the lubricant that you have on that chain. However, using full tension test methodology for any period of time, for a lot of lubricants, not all, but for quite a lot, there would be a particular point in time where the efficiency losses for that lubricant would start to quite suddenly ramp up and continue to ramp up. When the chain was then rested and the test restarted, the efficiency loss results would be back to where they were before that ramp up started to occur. In short, most bicycle chain lubricants, or not, I can't necessarily say most, many bicycle chain lubricants need the slackening time through the bottom of the drivetrain, which is present even on track bikes and fixies and so on, for the lubrication molecules to reset and realign, or things start to get a bit weird. Basically, the lubricant can be pressed off the metal surfaces if it's kept under high tension the entire time. Not all lubricants are affected by not having the slackening time, however. But in short, he pioneered a protocol whereby you would test the chain on the full tension test machine to get the point in time efficiency loss for the chain with that lubricant on it. Obviously, normally at the start of a test, the chain would then be moved to a different machine, which is set up just like a bicycle drivetrain so that it has the slackening time. It would then run the chain for, say, 1 hour intervals or 30-minute intervals, whatever they are looking to do, and then move the chain back to the full tension test machine to get the very, very accurate efficiency loss measure for how that chain and lubricant is going. However, is it possible that a company with that knowledge might look to use a lubricant base for their own products that is not impacted by long durations on a full tension test machine, and thereby be able to do fancy testing, or what appears on the surface to be very fancy high-end testing, showing their lubricants to be amazing and key competitor lubricants to be rather terrible, with very high increases in friction losses in a very short time. Did Muc-Off know that doing long duration testing on a full tension test machine would produce pretty wobbly results for quite a number of lubricants on the market? Well, when they were building their fancy test lab, they did consult with Jason Smith of Friction Facts, as that was one of the services that Friction Facts offered at the time. And in their brochure for the launch of their nano chain lubricant, they have pictures of both a full tension test machine and a full load test machine, so that the two machines that Jason pioneered that you need to use for the lubricant efficiency testing. They have pictures of both of those machines in their brochure, consulted with Jason Smith. I think that the odds that Muc-Off were not aware of what occurs with long duration testing on an FTT machine, let's call that really super slim. Now, do you believe that you can apply a top drip lubricant, or really any drip lubricant, go for a lovely ride for 4 hours on a lovely day with no contamination, and that you're going to go from a 4-watt chain to a 14-watt chain at the end of that 4 hours, that you're going to have a 10-watt increase in your efficiency loss in your chain in 4 hours of cycling? Personally, I find it incredible that they went to print with that result. And I think it says a lot about Muc-Off that they actually did so. A quick look through their brochure. Sorry, playing with the marker. We can see some images. Here is a full tension test machine setup. Here is a full load test machine setup because it has an actual derailleur, so the chain is going to go through the same sort of low tension slackening time that it will get on an actual bicycle drivetrain, as opposed to being kept in high tension in the top and bottom span, which is what happens in a full tension test machine. Again, I ask the question, what are the odds that they do not know why they have both machines? And Ceramic Speed, they did an open letter response after this NTC brochure release, and they were able to recreate the actually exact same result by running the test just on their FTT machine, as opposed to doing the established protocol of do your efficiency spot check with the FTT and then move it back to the FLT machine for the main duration run. Now, so what do I believe has occurred? To me, my personal belief and opinion is that it's fairly clear that Muc-Off have used the, I guess the messy landscape of lubricant efficiency testing to test in a manner that they know is going to give their product a good test result because of the base that they're choosing to use for their lubricants, and show key competitors to be rather terrible. I think that's rather shonky. I think it steps a bit beyond the bounds of, I guess, going hard on marketing. If you start to step into what I believe is deliberately fudging testing to show your competitors to be comparatively poor, that's sort of stepping into a new level. I think it's pretty safe to say that in general, Muc-Off and their marketing, they do tend to lay it on pretty thick. I really think in this case, they've sort of had a look at what other manufacturers are doing for marketing, gone, hold my beer, watch this. And that's what we have. There's kind of a second part to the whole Muc-Off story, and that is, what is the performance of the actual Muc-Off lubricants for all this wondrous testing that they're doing as part of their own development. Okay, so really I guess the more fancy of the Muc-Off lubricants, so their Ludicrous AF, which is their latest one, their Hydrodynamic, which is what was sort of heavily marketed as Team Sky Hydrodynamic back in the, I guess, the boon years of Team Sky and Grand Tours. And then Muc-Off Nano, that was really their first very expensive, very fancy, supposedly high performance lubricant developed for Bradley Wiggins' hour record is their claim. Whether it was used in that record is another story altogether. What's really apparent is that what we can see here, so in this column here, we have block 1, this is no contamination. And then here in block 2 is where we have added dry contamination. And we can see we're going from basically 8.92% wear in block 1, which is not too bad for Ludicrous AF, to a massive 78% in block 2. So it has increased, basically a bit over 69% in its wear rate from block 1 to block 2, which what that demonstrates is a very high propensity to absorb pretty much all of the contamination coming its way and becoming highly abrasive because of that. Hydrodynamic had a really poor block 1 result, but a very similar rate of wear rate increase into block 2 of pretty much almost 70%. And same with Nano, their really expensive super lube is one of the worst ever tested through block 1, and that was despite being applied immersive, because they were showing immersive application via ultrasonic as what they were doing with that product for prepping their nano chains. So that's really quite something for an immersive application of a $100 a bottle wet lubricant. But we can see again pretty much dead on 70% wear rate increase from block 1 to block 2. Ludicrous AF, Hydrodynamic and Muc-Off Nano all increased basically within 1% of each other at around the 70% mark from block 1 to block 2. So all of them are having an extremely similar rate of just that huge increase in wear once contamination is introduced. As a quick comparison, the average wear rate increase between block 1 and block 2 for the top 5 wet lubricants tested to date is just over 12%. So as compared to basically 70% for the top 3, or the 3 highest build Muc-Off lubricants. So, I mean, whatever they are at the start, heaven forbid you're using these out on the trails, but even if you're not, they are just, they've demonstrated that propensity to absorb airborne contamination like very few others that we've ever tested. Now, this part is speculation. However, the fact that all 3 of these lubricants show such a similar, characteristic between block 1 and block 2, I think it's possible that they are using a particular base for the reason that it is not affected by long duration tests on an FTT machine, but there's kind of a side effect of that base with regards to its contamination absorption, that in the real world, of cycling outside, this is just not a lubricant base that's sort of fit for that purpose, but it is fit for the purpose of fudging testing if one wants to do testing just on an FTT machine, because they know that that's going to give some really wonky results for key competitors. I find the whole thing with Muc-Off kind of fascinating. These actions, I guess, to get to where we're at with, what I personally believe is the case with Muc-Off and what they've done with their testing. It takes quite a number of very senior people to be involved and making very conscious decisions around actions that one can question the honesty of those actions. This is just not someone going rogue in a lab. There's actually quite a lot that sits behind what's happened here. That has to come from a clear, sort of, I guess, culture of behavior to end up at this point. And that's a pretty concerning one. Right. And if you're thinking that, oh no, they wouldn't be doing, what I'm intimating that I think they have probably done, in my belief and personal opinion. I mean, if you exist in the world, you will know that sadly, there are just countless examples, past and current, of major companies doing some really, really corrupt and terrible behavior. I think it would be naive to believe that we're immune from that in cycling, and that we haven't had or won't have cases of cycling companies taking their marketing approach perhaps a little bit too far, and perhaps stepping over some lines that we would wish that they did not. In the scheme of dodgy things in the world, this is obviously very low level. In the scheme of the very narrow focus that I have, which is lubrication on bicycle chains, I can't think of, a more concerning situation than what I believe personally that they have executed. But yet, sadly, Muc-Off earned themselves a big ZFC Shonky award by way of, in my personal opinion and belief, knowingly testing incorrectly to make key competitors look poor whilst keeping themselves looking good. And there's a potential link as part of all that whereby this may explain what sits behind their lubricants in the zero friction cycling testing becoming so abrasive and high wear so quickly, which is not great, especially if you're paying around $90 or $100 for a 50ml bottle of lubricant. You would really like that to be the super low friction lubricant that the company is claiming it is, as opposed to potentially being a liquid bastard file, which is what shows up in the, I know I'm biased, but very robust ZFC test protocol. Lastly, sorry, I have tried for a very long time to get Muc-Off to, answer a whole bunch of questions, really giving them the opportunity to provide me with some evidence to allay my concerns with regards to what I believe they have done with their testing. I finally managed to get a call with them after years of emailing them. Alas, that call was very disappointing. I was not able to delve into any of the questions that I wanted to get to at all. It was pretty much just like a show and tell. After the call, when I emailed the disappointment with regards to that, and still after all this time, all the questions that I had with regards to my concerns, they advised they would answer those questions. They said they would need a few weeks. It has been, again, it's probably been about a year, and obviously multiple follow-ups, and still nothing. So we just have still received, after many years of trying, zero input back from Muc-Off to allay a single question around the concerns outlined here. And I have gone into more depth with regards to all of that. So if you want to go deeper, have a look at the Muc-Off files part 2 video. But yeah, not great. And here we are. If Muc-Off would like to come back to me and prove me wrong, please do so, because I would love to get information that I am incorrect, if that exists. All right, the Shonkies should move a bit quicker from here. They are the two more in-depth ones. Prestacycle, they, really have something with regards to marketing for their Prestacycle One lubricant. Let's have a quick look at the website for that one. All right, well, this is very interesting. I went to find the product to go to the marketing, and I've gone through the entire website. So after initially failing to find it just in bike care or by searching for the product name, I've gone through the whole website, and neither the Prestacycle One chain lubricant, or really everything lubricant, or their Prestacycle cream, which is their bearing grease, and also, rather interestingly, their degreaser, I cannot find them on the website. I may have to duck to my own YouTube video to bring the screen up on that to have a look at the marketing claims for the product. But this could be a very short Shonky overall if they have discontinued. I wonder if that was due to the review. Yeah, so there we go. So I went through every page of their website and no Prestacycle One liquid to be found. When clicking on a link from Google, on their website it says page not found. So it's looking more likely that they have actually removed that product from sale, which is kind of interesting. If I have a look at another site, it's also interesting that most of the rather interesting claims that Prestacycle made about this product, they have not decided to list those here. They have, I guess, decided to put in one of the more, I'll say, insidious parts of their marketing claim, saying that it was a lubricant so good that it broke the ASTM 4-ball wear test. So that'll be one of the key reasons why this is getting a Shonky award. Right, so I had to duck across to my video review on that. So this is off the Zero Friction Cycling detail review. Great channel, Zero Friction Cycling. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to subscribe. What a channel. All right, we can see here some rather interesting claims for this lubricant. It's a dry lube, it's a wet lube, it's a bike wash, it's a degreaser, a rust remover, a rust preventer, an anti-seize, a paint protectant, metal polish, and a leather conditioner. That is amazing. But so in general, I'm not saying that a product can't be all those things. It's obviously quite unusual to have that many and that, I guess, some of those combinations of claims. The most standout, obviously, is dry lube and wet lube. Nobody else, to my knowledge, has ever claimed that their lubricant is a dry lubricant and a wet lubricant at the same time. The instructions said that if you apply it and basically leave the, I guess, the excess on the outside, it's a wet lube. If you wipe the excess off the outside, it's a dry lube. Quite obviously, wiping the outside of the chain does not, initiate some chemical change within the lubricant inside the chain and turn that lubricant from being wet to dry. It remains wet. Wet lubricant migrates from inside the chain to outside the chain, and you have a wet lubricant on the outside of your chain again. Stuff like that is pretty kind of out there. Some things are relatively, not compatible. Typically, a polishing compound wouldn't also be the lowest friction lubricant. Normally, some level of friction is needed for some level of polishing action to take place, be it from very mild to, if you're starting to polish something, you might have a sort of more aggressive compound. But typically, if the aim is to be the lowest friction lubricant, you wouldn't also have that as a polishing product as well. They're normally two separate category of products for very sort of hopefully obvious reasons. I mean, obviously, if you set to polishing something with a frictionless cloth, nothing is going to happen. You need some level of friction to be there to actually do some polishing. So it's kind of odd. It's one of those things where, maybe, I guess, pre-test, it was sort of like, okay, maybe it's a bit like a Swiss Army knife. It's not going to be the best in category at any of these things, but it may be competent in the majority or perhaps even all of them. So aside from the dry wet lube claim, I guess giving it some leeway for that. However, if your ideal product for your bicycle chain is the best bicycle chain lubricant that you can find, it's simply unlikely that a product that is aiming to cover so many bases will be the best option for you if you've got that main aim. If you're out on somewhere in Armageddon and you can only have one product that needs to cover a whole lot of things, maybe that could have been a product. But if you have access to shop for bicycle chain lubricants and you also have access to purchase other products that you may need to perform other tasks, such as a metal polish for metal polishing or a leather conditioner for conditioning leather, it may be that purchasing a built to purpose bicycle chain lubricant could be your better option. Now, the trend kind of continued with their Prestacycle One cream, which is a bearing grease, but it's also a degreaser. I mean, I've just not seen marketing quite that bipolar before. And whilst we're there, it's also a wax. It's a bike wash. It's a rust remover, rust preventer, anti-seize, paint protection, metal polish, and leather conditioner. So, just pretty interesting things going on at Prestacycle. They're kind of on the bleeding edge of a few things product combination there. Right, skipping across to, this is where really, to me, the marketing goes from being pretty wobbly and fairly solidly heading towards the Shonky Award to really putting themselves in the mix. So you can see the second paragraph here. I can't highlight it because it's my YouTube vid screen. Lubrication that broke the test. Prestacycle One was subjected to the ASTM 4-ball wear test. A steel ball is rotated against 3 lubricated stationary steel balls under a specific load, speed, temperature, and time per ASTM standards to determine wear or failure. Prestacycle One's lubrication score result, no fail. Now, stating that the test result was no fail, that is fine. That is what they should have stated. They should be, referring to that they undertook this particular standards test and that it passed that test. Making a whole song and dance that it broke the test, and they made a bit of a song and dance about that in other places as well. That is really quite shonky. Yes, I mean, it's just a particular ASTM standards test, and it passed that test. It passed that test. It is really, to me, shonky, misleading, and dodgy to then go and make a song and dance about breaking the test when you simply pass the test. I mean, we could come up with a gazillion analogies with regards to testing that, I'm sure all of us have undertaken numerous tests in our lives at various levels. And if we have passed those tests, even if you pass with a 100% correct result, you didn't break the test, you passed the test. So not great. And they made some pretty big bones about that overall, which is just really misleading. But obviously, we could ask a bunch of questions about how relevant was the ASTM 4-ball test with regards to its performance as a bicycle chain lubricant on a bicycle chain. Quite often, ASTM standards tests do not cross-correlate to how well a lubricant may perform in its actual use case on a bicycle chain at all. Sometimes they can, but more often than not, there's just not a cross-correlation at all. Yeah, it's a bit like if you take an English test, but you're about to embark on a project that requires some fairly high-level physics and mathematics. Awesome that you passed the English test, may not be relevant to the project that you're about to embark on. Whilst we're here, I can't resist. In a lot of the material, they had so much marketing material on this product. It was quite something. Within that, they have a pretty big shot at testing that is using, cycling-specific testing. So that's quite interesting. To a degree, they're correct with, just if manufacturers are using just paid professional endorsements, that really doesn't give you an indication at all. If someone's paid to say something is good, then of course they're going to do so. But leading into, so telling feel-good stories reinforced by paid professional endorsements is how a product avoids being examined for suitability for purpose through mil-spec and other specifications. On another page of marketing material, they do list a whole bunch of mil-spec tests that Prestacycle One was put through as well. So that was one of the lines that really jumped out at me when I was researching the product. Suitability for purpose through mil-spec. I must have missed the cycling battalion in the Gulf War or similar. Maybe there's a whole bunch of military machines where the drivetrain is actually made up of bicycle chains, and I just haven't been aware of that to date. So perhaps Prestacycle could help educate me there with regards to how relevant the mil-spec testing was for their product for use on a bicycle drivetrain. So if you want the full detail of the coverage of their marketing, because this is, really one of the most heavily marketed products with regards to the amount of effort that has been put in by Prestacycle to put forward what I feel was extremely deceptive marketing overall. Have a look at the Prestacycle One detail review video on that awesome ZFC cycling YouTube channel. And how did Prestacycle One go in the zero friction cycling test? It was not bad in the clean block one. However, he returned what is probably the largest wear rate increase of any lubricant tested to date. So even outshining the wondrous Muc-Offs, really basically we're looking at around an 88% or 87% wear rate increase between block 1 and block 2. So it absorbed the contamination literally like nothing else before it, and just became an absolute grinding paste, or perhaps in their words, polishing compound. Perhaps if I opened up the chain parts once cleaned would have looked like the best silverware on the market. However, as a bicycle chain lubricant, that's a pretty massive fail. So I was very concerned for any cyclists who may have fallen for the marketing and were using that, especially off-road. So yeah, really, really, really bad. 36th place out of 40 lubricants tested to date, and that includes the Wend Wax rub-on where there was no lubrication inside the chain. So really, out of actual lubricants being tested, it's 36th out of 39 by the end of block 2, which was as far into the test as it went. Prior to doing the detail review, I did send the owner of Prestacycle One, as you can imagine, the full list of questions. It was quite a number of pages of questions, so really giving him the opportunity to answer the concerns that I had, read their claims on the mil-spec testing and ASTM testing, the concerns that he had with regards to some other bicycle-specific testing that is done, and obviously input with regards to the performance results that came up in zero friction cycling test. Committed to answering all my questions within 3 weeks. 3 weeks went by, I followed up, and nothing. And yeah, I find it really quite interesting that it is now removed. If you do watch the full detail review on the Prestacycle One, you will see that, there was literally just pages and pages of marketing material, a lot of it very cleverly worded to, I guess, lead you in a certain mindset. And it is, I don't think it would have been a light decision to remove all of that effort that they put into the marketing of Prestacycle One. So yeah, I wonder what was behind its removal, but anyway. Prestacycle One gets a big Shonky award from Zero Friction Cycling because, for one, the marketing was, in my personal belief and opinion, extremely misleading and deceptive, and it was deliberately and knowingly so. And the product performance was extremely poor. Now, I have no idea if all the other stuff that Prestacycle sells are great or meh, but it does worry me if a company is going to go into that much effort to being quite, in my belief, deceptive with regards to the marketing of one product. What may they be doing across others? Very similar concerns, same vein as with regards to Muc-Off. All right, that will do for the Shonky Awards Part 1. Apologies on this clip for my face. I got stung by a bee in the face on Wednesday's ride. And so I didn't do any filming yesterday. My face was pretty swollen up. It's better today, but still not amazing. I'll probably save filming further clips for the Shonky Awards Part 2 till next week, when my face has returned to somewhat less weird. It does help with some of the wrinkles though when it swells up there, so Botox might be a new treatment for us all. The upcoming Shonky ones, they tend to be a bit quicker in the Part 2 because they're a little bit sort of smaller, easier ones to run through. But hope you found Part 1 all groovy, and Part 2 should be hopefully even more fun. And then the final video before my Christmas break, I'll look to do the opposite and have some awards on the best stuff, really, that has come out. So we'll finish on a bit more of a positive. Otherwise, have a great weekend and week of cycling, and I'll look forward to chatting to you next Friday.